What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to Better Plays Ahead. We are in week 11 of the NFL season. My name is Sam Wagman, and I am your host of today's program. You can find me on Twitter at Swagman95 and all of us at the Game Day over at the Game Day NFL. And with me for today, we have a very, very special guest host taking the reins as well alongside me. You know him very well. He is the king of fantasy football Twitter, a Fantasy Sports Writers Association Hall of Famer, the man, the myth, Scott Engel himself. Scott, how you doing today, my friend?
Oh, great to be with you, brother. And I do betting too, but I'm really grooving to that intro, like dun, 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 dun,
It's
playing a
good,
little
isn't
air
it?
guitar. It's like funky, yeah.
I saw you when we came off of it. You were absolutely loving it in the beat and everything, man. But
Yeah.
we have an absolutely packed show today. Scott and I are going to kick it for the next 30 to 40 minutes with you guys. We're going to break down our favorite chalk, trap, week 11 bets. And then obviously we're going to close the show out with some Thursday night bets like we always do. We have an absolutely packed show, so we're going to get right into it. And Scott, I'm going to flip it right to you with this for your chalkboard play of the week. And for anybody that's new around here, chalkboard play is a play that we feel that both the public and the sharps are both aligned on, and that's how the numbers and the money reflect it. So we're gonna make our case for two games in this week 11 slate, and Scott's gonna start you off with the Cowboys and Panthers game. So Scott, tell us all about that game.
Yeah, this is minus 10.5 Dallas on DraftKings Sportsbook. But if there's one thing that Dallas knows how to do, it's how to dispose of bad teams. For those who've seen Scarface, there was this guy who was like labeled as a disposal expert. If you know the movie, that Tony Montana got really mad at. The Cowboys are disposal experts in inferior teams. They've disposed of the Giants twice. They've disposed of the Jets. They've disposed of the Rams. All bad teams they know how to beat. So to me, this is a lock. Playing against the Panthers, Dak Prescott is on a roll. 3 consecutive games of 300 yards and three plus TVs. CeeDee Lamb is on a record-setting pace right now. Brandon Cooks is becoming that number 2 receiver that they want. Micah Parsons sacks in his last 2 road games. This is just a mismatch. So to me, this is an easy lock. Sometimes when you look at spreads, like you'll look at the spread like the Jets and Buffalo -7, a divisional game. It's kind of dangerous. The Lions Bear spread kind of dangerous because it's divisional. These two teams are not familiar with each other. Dak's not an MVP candidate, no matter what Felipe Fonts says on Caps Off, just because he beats up on bad teams. But they know how to beat bad teams. So to me, the Cowboys are a lock.
Yeah, I like this play. For me, the only reason I haven't taken this is because I don't want to get caught on the other end of the hook. But I do think that the Cowboys can easily win this game by 2 touchdowns. Bryce Young has just not looked quite himself, and the offense is going back to having plays called by Frank Reich, which when Thomas Brown took over play calling from Reich a few weeks ago, he looked really good in his first game, kind of fizzled out in the second game. I think Reich knows that his job is probably on the line, which is why he took play calling back at this point. But I have to wonder whether this is going to result in anything positive for the Panthers at this point in the season. It kind of just looks like this is a wasted season. It's good learning practice for Bryce Young as an NFL quarterback, but their defense is awful. Their offensive line can't block. And honestly, this team has done nothing except beat the Texans in an inexplicable 13-12 victory earlier this season. So I'm with you on this. I like this one. We're gonna flip over to my chalk play, which is the Eagles against the Chiefs, and I took the Eagles here +3. You're getting that on DraftKings as well, and the Eagles are getting both 58% of the spread and 58% of the handle as well. And that's kind of notable to me because I figured that the public would be all over Patrick Mahomes in this spot, given the way that he came back against the Eagles in the Super Bowl last year, to a very impressive 38-35 victory after being down, I believe it was I want to say it was 27-10 at the halfway point of that game, and they came back to win. Obviously, sore spot. Don't want to talk about it, but now we have the Super Bowl matchup or rematch on Monday Night Football, and it's going to be at Arrowhead. It's in all the state. Everything is there. Taylor Swift is going to be there. Her parents are going to be there. Jason or Travis Kelsey's parents are going to be there. Everyone is going to be at this game. But I think the Eagles are just set up to come out on top of this game. They are the better team in this matchup. They're better put together. Despite how well Kansas City's defense has been playing, I think the Eagles are plenty well set up to stop them. They have a better offense than the Chiefs do this season. It's pretty clear to me that if you're able to limit Kelsey, you can shut down this Chiefs offense pretty well. Mahomes can only do so much magic. And I know we've been saying that for 3-4 years now. He can only do so much magic if you take away his main weapon. But I think there's definitely a stopping point here. I mean, we just saw Denver really limit this Chiefs team. The Eagles can shut down the run really easily. I think that they're the better team there, and you're getting 3 points with them. So I took the Eagles +3 here. Really like it this week.
All right, I'm going to bust your chops here. The Eagles fan says the Eagles are a lock where he wants to get revenge for the Super Bowl.
I didn't say a lock.
You're saying it's chalk, basically. So,
but it is.
It's not. To me, this could actually be a trap. This game could go either way. We've been hearing for years that, ever since they lost Tyreek Hill about how he doesn't have receivers. Well, he didn't have receivers last year. And they won the Super Bowl. So, to me, when we have the bye week, I'm speculating that, they took time to fix what was broken here. And Rashee Rice is somebody I like as an anytime touchdown scorer prop. I know the Eagles acquired Kevin Byard, but they've still allowed the most touchdown passes to wide receivers, 14. I could see this game going either way, and Kansas City wanting to make a statement here. I don't see this as chalk whatsoever.
Well, we'll have to talk about this off the air a little bit more, and maybe discuss some side bets here.
I hope for you that the Eagles win because I don't have a dog
Me
in this
too,
fight.
for my
but
sanity.
If we're gonna do this, I'll take the Seahawks. Switch to them as chalk if we're gonna do this.
Well, we can do that all day, but we're gonna hop right on over to our trap play of the week, and we decided to go with the Minnesota Vikings +2.5 versus the Denver Broncos in this spot. And this is an interesting spot, Scott, because we're coming off one of the best stories that we've seen in recent memory of the NFL. Josh Dobbs coming in off the bench, off the plane, basically, only 2 days in Minnesota after being acquired, after Kirk Cousins went down with a torn Achilles. Jaron Hall was supposed to be the guy, comes in against the Falcons, engineers the massive comeback, goes out the next week against the Saints, beats them handily. Why is this game a trap?
This game is a trap because Minnesota's won 5 straight. And even though Josh Dobbs, they're getting his name ready for the Ring of Honor there in Minnesota, it seems. Denver's played a lot.
Life.
Yeah,
a football life is coming.
Yeah, I already said that during Caps Off. I didn't want to repeat the same joke. So, but thank you for making it original this time on this show. But Denver's been playing really well recently, especially defensively. Josh Dobbs is he's adequate passing, but rushing for touchdowns in 4 consecutive games, that's not sustainable. I don't think, Sean Payton's finally found his groove with the Broncos and with Russell Wilson. And Russell Wilson on national television, he's recaptured a good chunk of his better form from his Seattle days. He's not quite the same quarterback he was then, but I think Sean Payton's starting to get him comfortable to the point where he's as good as he can be. And Russell Wilson, prior to last season, on national television games, he had a 29-11 primetime national TV record, and you saw what he did against the Buffalo Bills. He's also got the second most career fourth quarter comebacks and game-winning drives of any active quarterback. When this game comes down to Wilson versus Dobbs, you can still give me Russell Wilson.
Yeah, I'm totally with that. I mean, Russ has looked good, and let's not forget the sleeping giant in this room. It's the Denver defense too.
Yeah.
Over the last 3 weeks, they rank second in the NFL with only 16 points allowed per game. They've started to really break down opposing teams' offenses. And look, let's put it this way: the Saints and Falcons, they're not that good. They're
Four
just
turnovers
average.
forced in each of the last two
Yeah,
games.
they're just average.
Yeah.
So we're finally starting to see this Denver defense look the way it was supposed to coming into the season. Patrick Surtain playing his normal lockdown defense, but the defensive line is finally starting to get pressure on these quarterbacks. And another question I have too is whether Justin Jefferson will truly be ready for this football game. Is he truly healthy? Like, I know they held him out, an extra week last week to kind of get him prepared. But, those soft tissue injuries are tricky. Nobody ever really knows. And obviously, TJ Hawkinson as well. Like, he was not supposed to be near 100% last week. I know he looked 100%, but I still don't think he was. He came out of the game multiple times. So I'm interested to see whether this Minnesota team is really all they're cracked up to be, because we saw this story last year. Everyone was calling them one of the best teams in the league, 13 game winners, won the NFC North, and then they lost to the Giants.
Well, I've
So
already read that Jefferson's not going to play. But
really,
With Hawkinson, he's one of those guys where you know he, sometimes you have guys who are game time decisions and questionable tags, and they tough it out. After what we saw from Hawkinson last week, there's no way you doubt him. If he's on the field, he's putting up numbers.
mhm. Yeah, I mean, definitely. I am seeing that no decision's been made on Justin Jefferson yet. So I will say that. I will say that I would take this number now while you have it under 3 points. We're recommending the Broncos on this side, and that number could definitely change when Justin Jefferson, a decision's made on his status for this game. So I would go ahead and grab that now before this number moves. And we are going to get right into the real meat of this show with the betting board here. And I'm going to toss it to you for this first game. You took a Tampa Bay Buccaneers Rashad White prop here. So why don't you break that down for us?
Rashad White under 44.5 rushing yards. He's been relying on volume and a lot of receiving in his recent games where he's performed well. This San Francisco defense came out re-energized after the bye and held Travis Etienne to 35 rushing yards and 39 from scrimmage. If Travis Etienne ain't getting it done against this defensive front, Rashad White certainly is not.
Yeah, so something I've noticed this season is it has become a trend of most sports handicappers and betting experts around the space to just go ahead and just immediately bet the under on Rashad White's rushing yards, provided that they were in the realm of that 45 to 50 range, and even when they were above 50 in the early beginnings. And then we've just been right almost nearly every single week on it. I don't really expect this to be any different. White is one of the most inefficient runners in the NFL this season. He still ranks tied for last in rush yards over expectation this season. He's just not been able to get it done on the ground. Any value that he's contributed has been in the passing game. There was a stat that I found last week, and I'm not still sure it's true because it's from last week, before last week's game, but he was the most inefficient runner in the NFL. It means he ranked first in rush or last in rush yards over expectation, but he ranked first in receiving yards over expectation for running back. So he's just been doing all of his damage in the receiving game and has been contributing next to nothing as a runner so far this season. I don't really expect that to change at all. This is going to be a matchup where if the Bucs have any hope of winning, they're going to have to throw the ball, not run it. So, all right, we're going to move on to my first pick here, and I'm going to roll with CeeDee Lamb's longest reception over 25 and a half yards. Now, if you follow me on Twitter, you saw that I tweeted out today that I found one of my favorite props of the regular season to this point, and that the longest reception market continues to be extremely undervalued, and that does just not even hold a candle to how good of a number that this is for me. And so let's break this down. CeeDee Lamb has gone over this number in 7 of 9 games. He's gone over it in 4 of his last 5. The Cowboys have been one of the highest passing teams in the recent stretch of games. So far this season, they rank 7th in pass rate over expected. That number jumps to 3rd if you look at their last 4 games. They are just passing the ball. And like Scott said earlier, they're passing on bad teams and they're doing it really well. And I just expect that to continue here. Now, the Panthers aren't the worst team against slot cornerbacks, which is where CD aligns, nearly 55% of the time. But they're not the best either. And they've allowed the third highest completion percentage of balls that are thrown for 20 plus yards downfield this season. And they're allowing a league average amount of those balls to be thrown. Without J.C. Horn in the secondary, Dante Jackson is there, but he's just average. The Panthers don't really have any way to stop CeeDee Lamb, who has been pretty much the most unstoppable receiver in the NFL over the last month and a half. And I just expect him to go wild. And there's no reason why he can't catch a pass for longer than 26 yards in this game.
He might catch more than one pass. He might double this prop and do it twice. He can become the first player in NFL history to have 4 consecutive games of 100-plus receiving yards this week.
A.J. Brown did that 6 straight.
Okay. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I misquoted the stat. He can become the first player in NFL history with 10-plus catches and 150 receiving yards in 3 straight games.
I was about to say, A.J. Brown just had 6 straight games of 125 plus. But yeah, absolutely. I really think CeeDee Lamb is just absolutely going wild. He's been one of the best receivers, if not the best receiver in football over the last month. I'm not even ashamed to say it as a massive Eagles fan and a massive Cowboys, hater. He's been great. And Dak Prescott has been great. So I would continue to back them. There's really no reason not to. But we're going to move right on to our next prop. Scott, you picked Jahan Dotson to have a good game. And why did you do that?
He had 2 good games before the Seahawks cornerbacks, who have been playing really well, shut him out last week. I think there's a bounce back spot against the New Jersey Giants, who have allowed the second most receiving yards to wide receivers this year. I think Dotson easily goes over 35.5 receiving yards. Sam Howell leads the NFL in passing yards and passing attempts. And if this game becomes a blowout, that's how they get there. People say, well, what if they sit in the second half? That's because, they've rolled up the numbers already. The numbers don't come over the course of a full 4 quarters. I think, he caught touchdown passes in 2 consecutive games before last week. He had about 170 receiving yards in those 2 games combined, right within that range. I think against this Giants pass defense, he easily gets over this number.
Yeah, I like this one as well. I don't like it as much. I will be honest. Dotson has scared me. All this season, they just haven't used him. He hasn't, gone out there and really, commanded that same target share that he commanded, at Stretch's last point of last season. But this,
I think he had 18 total targets in the 2 previous games prior to last week, and he could go.
What about
he could go over
the 7 games?
Yeah, but he wasn't as involved. They started to get him more involved prior to last week's game. And Seattle's secondary has been shutting down a lot of receivers. I know they got blown out by Baltimore, but that had nothing to do with the secondary's pass coverage. They held Zay Flowers to 1 catch. This secondary, it's not comparable. Jahan Dotson can take out this prop on 1 play.
All right. Yeah, definitely agree with you on that one. All right. We're going to go and get into our last pick of the betting board here. And I'm going back to Old Reliable, a guy that I really loved to bet on 2 years ago when he was the only name in the Chicago secondary and was doing really well with it. Darnell Mooney, who's been kind of quiet at times this season. He's got a handful of games with 0 yards. He's got a handful of games with over this number. I picked him to go over 27 and a half receiving yards in this game, and I really like this one. So obviously, Tyson Bagent is now going to be relegated back to the bench where he belongs, and Justin Fields will be back as the starting quarterback. Thank God. If you're a Bears fan, I think you're probably crying in happiness at this point this week, or maybe you're just crying because you're a Bears fan.
Well, hasn't
But
he won just one game? I don't know if you cry with happiness.
well, I mean,
Justin Fields.
I would rather have Justin Fields than Tyson Bagent, but I think Darnell Mooney would also rather have Justin Fields than Tyson Bagent, and I'm betting on that in this game because with Fields in the lineup. Mooney was 3-1 with this prop earlier in the season. Detroit's allowing the 11th most passing yards in the league this season as well. And let's put it this way: Chicago's going to have to be throwing in this game. There's almost no scenario where this is a run-heavy script. And even if it was, Detroit's good against the run. So the Bears will be forced into a lot of pass-heavy scripts. Anyways, I think Fields is going to want to show and try and test out that dislocated thumb that he suffered a month ago and show that his arm is good. This is, the start of his audition to be the Bears starting quarterback next year. And he's going to show it right here. This is another guy, Mooney, who can get there in just one catch. All he needs is one deep catch. A couple of weeks ago, he hit this on the first play of the game. I think that this is a great play here. It's a guy who's not going to be as in the spotlight. He's a little more niche, but I do think that Mooney is definitely a play. And if the Bears want to cover this game, I think Mooney's going to have to be involved.
Yeah, I wouldn't call him unreliable, because he had some.
He was 2 years ago.
Oh, okay, 2 years ago, yeah, but
Yeah.
certainly not this year. Fields, I'm not worried about him. People saying to me fantasy-wise, "Oh, you're worried about him? It's his first game back." This is not a thing of where it's a physical issue for him. It's more about can you grip the ball, and the Bears were not going to bring him back before he's ready to grip the ball and throw effectively. Right. So, I'm not concerned about Justin Fields.
Yeah, I think at this point, he's definitely showed that he's ready to go. He's logged a few full practice days. He said he feels good. He said he's ready to go. He said he's able to grip the ball effectively at this point. And I expect him to be throwing in this game quite a bit. So I would be shocked if Mooney didn't have a shot.
He was aggressive before the injury. They started to let Justin Fields loose as a thrower.
Yeah, and that's something that we've seen the past couple of years. My buddy Dave Kluge went on NBC Sports in Chicago and really dropped a nice stat. Last year in weeks 1 to 4, I believe Fields was QB 29, and then from then on he was QB 3. The same year, or the same thing this year, he was QB 19 from weeks 1 to 3, and then until his injury, he was the QB 2. So there is plenty of room for Fields to really let loose and throw the ball around. I think he's going to be really good for fantasy again, and I'm excited to see it. But enough of that. We're going to jump right into our Thursday night games to close out the show. And Scott, I'm going to start with you here. We're going to go with your favorite anytime touchdown score of tonight's game.
Keaton Mitchell at plus money, plus 210.
Shocker.
Now, he just got 4. Now, Gus Edwards has scored in the last 4 games. Now, Mitchell only had 4 touches last week, but I believe that was because he had a hamstring injury leading up to the game. But yet, he still rushed for a 39-yard touchdown, and he caught a 32-yard touchdown pass. This is the most explosive player on the Baltimore offense. They have to get the ball in his hands in a game of major magnitude. This kid can score from anywhere on the field. 70-yarder, 7-yarder, whatever. This is a big game for the Ravens. They have to get their best playmaker involved because, let's face it, Zane Jones is still a work in progress. We know Mark Andrews is a playmaker, but the Ravens lack playmakers outside of Andrews, really. This is the most electrifying guy on their offense outside of their quarterback. They have to get the ball in his hands.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. Harbaugh was very clear with us. He said he's not going to be the guy, but he will be involved on a week to week basis. You can't put the genie back in the bottle. It was the same thing with Devin Achan, several weeks ago when we basically noted, okay, this guy has literal track speed. You cannot put the genie back in this box. Raheem Mostert cannot be, the true guy going forward. You have to feature Achan, and that's exactly what they did. And I think the Ravens saw that. I think they're going to, run by a similar playbook here. And I do think Keaton Mitchell will be pretty involved in tonight's
I
game. And
just
you're
want to
getting
know
it.
at this point whether the genie's going back in the bottle or the box.
I don't think it will. And plus, you're getting it at plus 210. Those are great odds. And you can get those over at DraftKings as well. Um, I'm going to go as well to the Ravens side here for my first prop. I'm going to go with literal old reliable and Mark Andrews to go over 54 and a half receiving yards. This is just a great game for Andrews. First of all, he loves playing against the Bengals. He's played well in nearly every single game against them. He has either 50 yards or a touchdown in all but two of his career games against the Bengals since he entered the NFL. The Bengals ranked 30th in defensive DVOA against the tight ends this season, and they're allowing the sixth most yards to that position this season as well. And Andrews has hit in five of nine games this season. But even though he didn't hit in week 2, he didn't really need to. Burrow wasn't really quite himself. And I do think that Baltimore is going to have to throw in this game. They've done nothing but run the ball extremely effectively in past games. But Andrews has still been involved in a game where they're going to have to throw. You have to imagine he's going to be the main target in this game. And I believe they're going to pepper him with targets. I love if you can get 7 targets on any of your other books. I definitely love that as well. I think this is a big Mark Andrews game tonight.
Yeah, Mark Andrews' numbers, touchdown catch in week 2 against the Bengals, has caught a touchdown pass against the Bengals in the last 3 regular season games. He also has a touchdown catch on 3 or 4 career games on Thursday night, so he likes playing under the lights. So he's also an anytime TD scorer prop as well.
Yep. Absolutely. Let's go to your Bengals player prop that you have for this game.
Yeah, I know Baltimore seemingly has a tough defense, but you know, Trent Irwin, who looks more like a guitar teacher than a wide receiver, he's going to make some music tonight. Over 3.5 receptions, plus 135 with T. Higgins out. He becomes a guy who has to be a chain mover. He has an 8 reception game this season, and when Higgins missed
In
week
week 5, I
5.
believe.
Yeah, week
Yeah.
5, I was going to say. And last week he caught a touchdown pass. So with Higgins out again, I'm liking Trevor Irwin over 3.5 receptions plus 135. I also was considering Tanner Hudson at over 2.5 receptions minus 125 as well, because he's somebody else who gets involved too with Higgins out.
I love the CLV because I got that Hudson over 2.5 this morning at plus 105. So I really like hearing that that's zoomed up to minus 125 there. But for my last prop, I'm going to go with the longest passing completion prop. And I'm going to go with Lamar to go over 36.5 for his longest pass completion here. And this is an interesting one because he can hit it in a variety of ways. We talked about Keaton Mitchell, who's been playing out of the backfield, just had a 32-yard touchdown catch last week. He can get there on this against the Cincinnati defense that is not good versus running backs. He's only hit this in 5 of 10 games, a 50% hit rate. Don't worry about that too much because he hit this in week 2 against Cincinnati, and Cincinnati's allowing the highest percentage of 20-yard passes this year, 16.6%, and they're allowing the second most yards on those, nearly 675 passing yards allowed on those deep passes this season. They cannot defend the deep ball. Teams just throw all over them. We watched CJ Stroud really do that last week against them. And there are plenty of players on the Ravens that can get in play for this prop. Zay Flowers is there, Keaton Mitchell is there, Mark Andrews is there, Nelson Aguilar is there, Odell is in play for that as well. There are plenty of guys who can play downfield for the Ravens and get there. And this is probably one of my favorite props that I found today, because I do think Lamar is due for a really good passing game, because he hasn't had to do much passing the ball when their running game is so effective. So I really like that over 36.5 yards longest pass completion.
Yeah, I always, this is a gutsy one because again, they don't have deep playmakers. The best way to get that done is to throw it to Keaton Mitchell and hope he takes a screen, like 32 plus yards like he did last week, because Andrews is really not going to beat people downfield with his speed. Flowers hasn't shown it. Beckham did have a nice catch and run last week.
He had 40 yards. He had a
Maybe
40-yard
maybe there's
touchdown.
a possibility there. I think he's getting back into health. So I think your best bets are Mitchell, because Zay Flowers is a screen type of guy. He really hasn't shown he can take a top off of defense yet.
Yeah, well, we shall see. But again, thank you guys with us, and we do back the Ravens here -3.5. You want to go see our Thursday night full breakdown written by me. You can go check out the newsletter on Back Office Buzz on the Game Days website as well. Go check that out. Tons of stuff over there. Myself, Scott Engel, Frank Ammirante, Matt Williams. Tons of content over there. Make sure you go check out them. Make sure you go check out Caps Off, Hard in the Paint, Hot Corner, all the fun, great stuff that we have over at thegameday.com. For myself, for Scott Engel, this has been Better Plays Ahead, and we will see you next Tuesday for our Thanksgiving show.